Hey, what's going on? It's Mike Belfor with Joe and DJ Campagna, and we're going to talk a little bit about the market and things that we're seeing right now. Yeah, without further ado, DJ,
Yeah,
what's going on, brother? How are you?
things are going well, man. It's exciting times in the market here in Sonoma County
Yeah,
and the Bay Area at large.
yeah. How long have you been grinding in real estate now? I've known you for like 15 years,
I
right?
know, I know. We used to, I used to help you as a customer when I owned the bike store, Sonoma
Yeah,
Bicycle Company, and then that transition to Mike's Bikes.
yeah.
I left that industry probably about 7.5, 8 years ago, and have been doing real estate full time ever since.
Yeah, yeah. I remember
Yeah,
seeing you too. I remember when you were real estate. I was actually hanging out with an agent that no longer does this. He moved out of state, and we're
yeah,
at Acre Coffee in
yeah, an
Petaluma.
acre, yeah,
And you
yeah.
cruised in real quick. I'm like,
Which
bro, what's
coincidentally,
up?
that acre used to be a bike store back in the day.
I remember. I
The
know.
old swing shop, yeah.
I know. And so, and that became like I remember it was a nightclub for a little bit too, right? Like for like
No, it was
a
a bike
year or
store
two.
forever, and then it was just nothing, and then it turned into Acre, and
That's what it
then
was. Okay. Okay.
still Acre.
Yeah, 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 down in Kentucky. Yeah, it's funny because yeah, I remember seeing him like, dude, what are you doing these days? Like, I'm in real estate. I'm like, what? And I think you were
Yeah,
with Keller then, right?
yeah. I
Um,
started with Keller. Yep,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then Evan, he moved to Idaho. And then I
yeah,
don't even know if he's still doing real estate at all anymore. I know he moved out of state, gosh, 2018, I want to say, or 17, somewhere in there.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, man. So what's happening in the market right now? What are you seeing? Um,
So Sonoma County at large is still what I would call a seller's market, but it's more hot seller's market in different areas. And Petaluma is that hot seller's market.
yeah,
The days on market in Petaluma is still, maybe I would say 10 days to 2 weeks, depending upon the if you priced your house right, and the price point. But the price point, because the conforming loan limit, as you could probably speak to better, is almost 900,000 now. That price, the median price point is almost at $1 million in
it's
Petaluma.
insane.
That's that middle number.
Yeah, that's insane considering where we were. I mean, I look back in 2010 when I bought my first property, Paloma townhouse, right off of Casa Grande and Del Oro. And
Yeah,
that property now is free and clear and it's a rental, but I bought that thing for 200K.
yeah,
Um, and I remember, the height then, 2008, we saw 700,000 or so, and we thought that was a big jump, and then it corrected,
yeah.
came back, and now it's just, oh my goodness. I mean, so are you seeing homes move quickly, days on market? The days on market thing, of course, for those that don't know, is it's how you judge how quickly they're moving, how many list days they have, right? So kind of what are you seeing when it comes to days on market, as far
Days
as
on
that?
market in Petaluma is still, like I said, I would say about 2 weeks at the most. So
Okay.
the time it goes on the market to the time it goes contingent is right around 2 weeks or so.
Are you
Um,
are you seeing a lot of stuff move quicker? Like, are you still seeing that hot property with five offers on it?
yeah, like I have a property that's off market right now. It's hard to show. Sellers are a little bit difficult right now. It's been shown twice, and we got an offer on it before we even went to market, and it's at the $1 million price point.
Wow.
It is a super amazing turnkey owned solar. I mean, the list of features on this house is so long that we don't even have enough time in this podcast.
Yes, that's awesome.
Same
Yeah,
thing, like there's a house on my street. I live on Madera Circle. The same model as mine, the 4 bed, two and
yeah,
a half bath, 1,700 square foot on a 7,000 square foot lot. They listed it for 980,
okay.
and he had two open houses, right around Super Bowl weekend, each for 2 hours, had 50 groups through, had multiple offers all over 1 million, and they just closed at 1 million, just to like day before yesterday.
Oh my
So yeah,
gosh.
so yeah, those that $1 million price point in Petaluma is hot, hot, hot. Denise Lucchese has a listing over Turtle Creek for a single story 4 bed on Raven, and she had it off market. She had it listed for 1,200,000. She got four offers all over 1,200,000, and that one's contingent as well. That happened before it even went to the market.
Wow, Turtle Creek. Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. That's great. We actually, my wife and I, Jacqueline and I, looked in that market a little bit, if you recall, gosh, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it was,
Yeah.
we were dating, getting married, right? So, that's crazy. So, I mean, are you seeing kind of? I mean, I guess that goes to my second point that I want to ask, as far as wine country market trends throughout Sonoma, and some of the markets you cover out there, Sonoma County as a whole. Are you seeing? It sounds like it's holding up. Then, I mean, you're starting to
It's holding
see.
up. There was a definite dip around the holidays, which is industry wide,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
Not obviously. The industry definitely after Halloween goes down and then comes back up right around St. Patrick's Day, which is on Monday, but it came up
Yeah.
a lot earlier. So Super Bowl Sunday, I feel like, was the launch.
Yeah.
Um, Sonoma, the town of Sonoma, more inventory that I've seen there. Days on market is ballooned, but again, if you price it right, I think it's all about pricing. People are chasing that higher price. I think you really need to get granular with when you're pricing your property so it's not sitting on the market.
100%. Now, I guess,
Um,
are there any unique challenges or opportunities that, you're seeing that
the
agents and
challenge in Sonoma is definitely insurance, because everybody freaks out about the wildfire. But here's the thing: if you're buying $1.5 million house and it's near a fire zone, you can get insurance. It's just more expensive.
yeah,
So where a normal insurance policy is going to be maybe 12 or 1,300 bucks a year, it might be like 5 grand a year. But
yeah.
and I sound a little cavalier when I say this, but if you're buying $1.5 million house, 5 grand a year for insurance, it's if that's the deal breaker, then maybe you need to come back down on your price point.
Well, then how do you navigate someone in that, right? Like, is that it? You just basically say, okay, let's talk about price point, what that insurance may look like, because that's
Yeah.
obviously affecting budgets. Then you kind of work with them to find out, you know, how do
Yeah.
you navigate through that? Maybe another price point, different market or different farm or demographic area. What do you generally do in that situation?
So, like in that situation, I knew it was going to be a problem, like when Fritz and Vanessa bought their house, right? And I knew that the insurance was going to be expensive. And I sat him down and said, look, I said, where you guys are looking, insurance is going to be expensive. I said,
Yeah.
we got to factor that into our thing, into our budget. We got to factor it in and say, can we afford an extra five or four or $600 a month for insurance?
Yeah.
And they were like, that's not, the price point that we're spending, that's not going to make or break us.
Yeah.
500 bucks, which
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that if you had a buyer like the one on North Star that we just did,
Yeah.
where they're spending 675,000, that if you all of a sudden went and said, hey, your insurance is going to be $600 a month, they're done because that's like financing probably what 90 to 100,000 more dollars.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing we want to do with most folks is, is
Mm.
really go over their budget, making sure they're
Yeah,
okay with it, making sure that they're comfortable, confident, and they can walk strongly in that, right? So that's a big
yeah,
point. And that brings another point that, for a while we saw a lot of because it got popular, I think with YouTube Reels on Instagram or TikTok or really social, I think really helped drive this because some are like, oh, you could become a millionaire and have passive income through like VRBO, second homes, right?
yeah.
Are you seeing some of those buyers still show up? Knowing these price points where thing is with insurance and stuff like that are you getting it any of that right now or hearing of anything like that?
That's become heavily legislated now in Sonoma County and Napa County,
Yeah.
especially. So you have to have some sort of I'm forgetting the word for it. I want to say occupancy permit or use permit or something like that,
Yeah.
where you can't just buy a house and VRBO it. You have to go through the whole thing. You could probably do it illegally, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because you guys
Right.
are getting some hot water.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Now, I mean, we see that in Hawaii. For a while,
Oh
Jacqueline,
yeah,
as you know, my wife, she had this dream of having a Hawaii VRBO or Airbnb, and we kept looking about like we want to. I used to live there, so yeah, I would love to
yeah,
get something. We started looking now in those counties, especially Maui County. They actually have legislature, as Sonoma does, in other counties throughout California, where if it was grandfathered in and it could follow that property and was transferable,
yeah.
is that a thing in Sonoma County, do you know, where it can be transferable from a current VRBO to a new owner? Is that even a thing? We see it more in vacation areas like Hawaii, of course, because it's
Yeah.
Hawaii. But is that something in Sonoma County, do you know?
Not that I don't actually know the answer to that.
Okay. Yeah.
I would imagine that with any other permit, you'd have to reapply. So the new owner would have to reapply. You just don't get it you know, because
Yeah.
you had it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. That makes sense. Okay, so I guess here's a question then is I guess when it comes to kind of the wins, what's the biggest win that you'd say you've had in the last 30 days and kind of what worked with that what helped you win? Uh
You're gonna love this, Michael. The reason why I've had a great win is actually because of you. It's like I get buyers in and they don't know what they're doing, and it's like I put them with you, and you're able to get them to a point where they can make an offer that's going to get accepted. Instead of being like all these what ifs, because you handle all the what ifs, you get them prepared and positioned so that when they make their offer, it's going to get accepted. So, and it's funny that you're asking me that question, and I wasn't prompted on that, but that is absolutely the truth. That's
Dude, you're
absolutely the
making
truth.
me blush, bro.
Yeah, well, God, you're asking a lot of your skin there, buddy.
Oh
Uh,
man. Yeah, I didn't know. Well, thank you. And
Yeah,
we pride
dude.
ourselves with that, but it comes with good partnerships such as yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a friend and a partner in this industry. I've known you for years beyond real estate, and our families know each other. It means a
Yeah.
lot that you share that. So thank you.
Well, it's and I'm just going to go on for 1 second here. So there's a million realtors, there's a million lenders, right? And I feel like some of them do, and there's a million of almost every industry, and there's some people who just do the basic, the bare minimum, right? And they get paid and they move on. And then there's people like you, and that's why I align myself with you, where you really take that person under your wing and you, like I said, you get them positioned to make the offer because there's so many people who just send me an offer and they're like, oh, they're pre-approved. And then I call the lender and they're like, yeah, they've got some clear to close conditions and need to get mad and they've got this going on, they've got that going on, their DTI is whatever it is. And, I feel like when I send somebody to you, we nip all that stuff in the bud and get them so that they're at a position where they're not making an offer that's going to put their DTI at like 79% or some crazy thing like that. You're like, hey, this is where they need to be,
Yeah.
and then we're able to make an offer, accordingly.
It's a huge point. I mean, that's one thing I'm passionate about, as you may remember or know. When I was Calvary Chapel, I was a huge proponent for Dave Ramsey's Financial
Yeah.
Peace University budgeting, doing things, in that way as to where they're setting themselves up to budget, have a savings account, making sure they're good to basically purchase a property. And we remember our undergrad years,
I'm
living on
always
top
grouchy.
top ramen and ready packs of salad. Nobody wants to go back to that,
No.
right? And
Yeah.
so that's a big thing that I'm passionate about. And it's funny you mentioned that North Star client. She was one of my favorite clients, I think, of all time. She's incredible. And being
Yeah.
able to work with her and kind of figure out that perfect number and
Yeah.
hitting everything to a T. And that's when we know you do a great job, when you bless someone in that way, because that's ultimately what we're here for. And Joe, since you're here, I think it's a trio. It's a tripod. Joe, thank you, because you help me in the background a lot. I tend to be a lot of front of house and I work some back house, but Joe's doing the background of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I think thank you for sharing that, DJ. That
Well, it's a
honestly,
great team
yeah,
because, like, when I need something, I know that, I know what you're doing all day, Mike, and I know that I can't necessarily just get you on the phone and ask you some question because you got to open up the file. And I know that I can communicate with Joe, and Joe's like, he knows what's going on.
yeah,
You're like the Van Halen, you're like the David Lee Roth of this Van Halen, but Joe's like the producer. So he's like, I got to know what's going on with the whole thing right here, because Mike's out there, you know, jump, you know.
yeah. Don't expect me to do those splits in the air though, dude.
Well,
But
not anymore.
yeah,
Holy
no,
cow.
gosh, I'm 45. I can't do that now. I mean, my kids are just, oh my gosh. I mean, it's hard to get down and pick them up sometimes.
Well,
Kidding,
back and
but
and back to that North Star buyer, she'd been looking for years, and she'd been dancing around with a realtor and a different lender, and I think that it was a matter of like nobody really addressed her needs. It's like, how are we going to get, again, it's position. And when she came into my open house, she wasn't represented by anybody.
yeah,
And I talked to her for, a little bit, and I said, let's get you into this house. Let's get you positioned. Let's do this thing. And she, and her, much to her credit, she was prepared. She had all of her ducks in a row, and she's responsive.
yep.
And when you asked her for a piece of paper, she sent it to you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, she's like, I have core, because she's a teacher. She's like, I have my core period at this time, and then she's like
Yeah.
saying it to us within like 5 minutes of the request. I believe she was
Oh
incredible.
yeah. Yeah, she's
Um,
great. Yeah.
yeah, no, I guess a question for you then is, I mean, speaking of that, because you have a care that is unlike anybody I've ever seen in our industry, which is why I enjoy working with you as well. And again, not to piggyback and say, oh, well, but
Yeah.
it's true, and I see that with so many of our clients that we've worked with over the last, 7, 8 years that you've been in this industry now. Um, what does your intake look like, DJ? Like when you take a client in, what do you generally do? How do you kind of
Oh,
unpack it all?
actually,
What are
I
those
have a
goals?
questionnaire. It would take me a little bit to find it, and I can't remember all the things, but I actually have a questionnaire that, I schedule a Zoom meeting with them, and I just start asking them, this series of questions, and just really trying to find out what's most important to them. Because, is getting an air quote a deal the most important, or is
Yeah,
it, that they want something close to mom and dad, or are they downsizing? What is it that's most important to them in this real estate journey?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then putting them, um, uh, you know, that's basically it. Finding out what is most important to them before we even go and jump in my car and start looking around at houses.
Yeah, making their goals your goals, right?
Yeah,
That's huge. And
yeah,
then, yeah, I
exactly.
mean, and then, yeah, I mean, be active. I mean, the one thing I love about you is you're about as active as I am in follow up. And I think
Yeah,
that's huge because not a lot of people do that. They're like, oh, you're good to go. Yeah, if you see
yeah,
something I emailed to you because you have your, Real Scout or whoever you're saying listings to, which
yeah.
is a program if you're a buyer or someone who's is unfamiliar, it sends emails and listings to you so you can take a look at like these properties in your price range, right? And DJ, you're pretty proactive, right? Oh, hey, I found this one, or this is an off-market one.
Yeah.
I know you worked a few off-market transactions that we've been able
There's
to be
a
a part of. Um,
Actually, that is something I wanted to touch on real quick too, is that whole off market thing.
yeah, yeah, unpack that, please.
So there's a certain contingent of people that just don't want hundreds of people trampling through their house, right? And they have an idea of what they want for the house, and they say, "Hey, I'd like to sell it, but I don't want it on the MLS. I don't want pictures on the MLS. I don't want any of that stuff. I just want to sell this house." And they contract with me, and the reason why in Petaluma, I would say, is where there's a lot of off market happening is because of the brokers meeting. We do a brokers meeting every Wednesday at 9 o'clock at the Lucchese Center,
Right.
and realtors pitch their off markets. And if you show up to that, you're going to know what's off market. So people call me and they're like, "What do you have that's off market?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, start going through the whole, buyers do this. They start going through the whole list of questions. Like, oh, I'm working with so and so, and I was like, I haven't seen that person at the meeting in 7 years. I'm like, how long you been working with this person? Oh, 6 months. I'm like, have they shown you anything off market? No, they just haven't been able to find anything. I said, well, and I don't want to say your person to show up to the meetings. Blah, blah. And I said, well, and then there's the whole buyer broker agreement and all that stuff. You have to have that conversation with. We can unpack that in a different podcast, but um, there is a significant amount of property in Petaluma that is being transferred off market.
Yeah.
Are you getting the most exposure for your seller? Maybe. What's the ultimate goal of the seller? Maybe they don't want 120% of ARV of value on the house. They want what they think that it's worth, and then we come down to a number, and then that person who's going to buy it off market, they say, "Hey, I want this thing to go to market. I'll give you, just a pinch more."
Yeah.
So that off market situation is happening more than you would think. I would say it's probably some sort of double digit percentage, less than 20, but definitely more than 10.
That's incredible, especially what we're seeing. So I guess kind of on that looking ahead thought would then be, what are you telling your clients to expect this spring summer? Is most of it could be off market listings or saying more listings are going to hit the market as we hit that regular spring market, as you mentioned earlier, where St. Patty's Day comes around and then you start seeing a ton of properties hit the market, or is it more
Yeah.
so an off market opportunity, do you think?
Well, I mean, for example, there's I have this whole slew of listings coming. I'm getting, peppered with phone calls for the listings I do have on market.
Yeah.
And one of the agents said, actually I have somebody who's going to be ready to go in June for this. They're looking for 4 bed, 2 bath, single story near Aaron Drive on the west side or the east side of town, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, actually, I said, I have this Turtle Creek property coming up. And they were like, well, would they consider selling it off market for, whatever their price is? And then my people can come in and do all the, upgrades that they want to do to it. Because we were going to paint it and carpet and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so those relationships with other realtors are super beneficial because they're looking out for their buyers, trying to get stuff to happen. And I'm looking out for my seller. And so when someone calls me and says, is there stuff coming on? I'm like, there is, but you have to be positioned and ready to go because if someone says, well, I'm thinking about calling a lender and I don't have any paperwork and I haven't filed taxes in 10 years, but I really want that house,
Yeah.
guess what? You ain't getting it unless you got a gigantic checkbook that you can
Yeah.
make stuff happen with.
Yeah. Or you could
So,
go non-QM, right? There's so many
you know,
non-qualified mortgage programs available these days. It's interesting how those things work now.
oh, I
We're seeing
know.
more and more of those because this market tends to be on the lending side. We see a little bit more in these tighter money markets or less activity. You'll see more folks. I still want to buy. I didn't do this. I didn't do that, and you tend to
Yeah,
they emerge for one reason or another. So I guess that being said, you know, if you're buying or perhaps even selling in this market, what
yeah,
would you do that would be different in your opinion? I know probably the off market idea, that's a great one. Buying, get their stuff together beforehand. What would you say to
I
that?
think it depends on what your motivations are. If your motivations are to get absolute top dollar for your property, I tell people, I say, let's, fix all of the obvious problems with the house. Make sure we have all of our inspections front loaded. Make sure the house is clean and presentable. Take professional photographs. I'll do a video walkthroughs of the house, things like that.
Yeah.
And I said, and just make it easy to show. Like my off-market one that I have on Banff, it's really hard to show, and we're not going to get a lot of traction on it. But then I have one coming up on, oh boy, one of the ones I have coming up is going to be on Madeira Circle, and that will be easy to show. You
Right.
give 2 hours notice to be able to go and show it with your
Right.
agent, and it'll be awesome.
Yeah.
And she's going to get a ton of traction on the house, and she's going to get a ton of offers on it because we're going to price it right. We're not going to price it. The house should sell for 925. We're not going to price it at 850 and hope to get a million. We're going to price it at 925. That's
Right.
what it should sell for, right?
Right.
Why
Right.
don't let's not why play games?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
What's the one thing that you think buyers or sellers need to hear then? I mean, what would, if there's one piece of advice that you could give to them, what would that be?
I use a realtor that you trust that's going to partner with you in the process. That's my advice. Use a realtor because I think a lot of people are trying to go it at their own. Or they say, I don't need a realtor to buy a house. And my grandfather bought a house with two nickels and a rusty nail, and we made it happen. It's like those days don't happen. So I mean, that said, if you are walking down the street and you say to a guy, "Hey, I'll buy your house," and the guy says, "Great, I'll sell it to you," you both agree. You don't need a realtor. Great, go call a real estate attorney. No problem. That's a great situation. But if you want to maximize the dollars you're going to get out of your home, you need a realtor. If you want to have somebody negotiate for the seller, for a buyer, if you want to find a house maybe that's not on the market, that's exactly what you want, you need a realtor who's boots on the ground, who's living and breathing it every single day, who's talking to the other folks who are out there selling houses, what's coming up,
Yeah.
also doing the research like in the neighborhood. Like I kind of know like what the next 20 neighbors are doing in my neighborhood as
Yeah.
far as like buying and selling their house, just because I talk to those people and know what's going on.
That's huge as a realtor. It's farming your area. I'm a big Buffini guy. I started the Buffini thing, gosh, 15 years ago, and I did it for a number of years. I'm not actively with their programs now, but they're talking about that mayor campaign that Joe did. It's just so your farm area, they know you. And I
Yeah.
know the street that you're on. I've been over there. I've helped have the pleasure of working a couple transactions over there with you.
Yeah.
And
With
it's so
May's deal. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I
Around the
mean,
corner.
still
Yeah.
friends today, right? And that's
Yeah.
huge to be able to continue to do stuff like that. So I love that.
And it's
Um,
not like I'm cramming realtor stuff down their throat every single day, but they know I'm a realtor. They know that that's what I do to feed my family and support my lifestyle.
yeah, I
And
mean,
it's
it's exactly goes back to the point though, is like teamwork makes the dream work. I know it's like cliche saying, but it's so true. I mean, yeah, line
100.
yourself up with this like-minded could work with you that frequently follows up, that can negotiate and have the biggest word I love with the Department of Real Estate is a fiduciary duty to represent you. Because that's
Yeah.
ultimately what you're doing. You have a fiduciary duty to represent your client, right?
Yeah.
So right on, man. So I guess to wrap up, where could people find you if they want to connect or ask you any questions on anything? What's the best way to
That,
connect with DJ these days?
just call me or text me
Okay.
because, like I always say, there's no such thing as an emergency email, right? You can email me, that's fine. But if you want to get a hold of me, call me at 707-849-4638. That's my cell phone number. That's direct. You can get me there during regular business hours, which I would say is like 8 a.m. to like 6-ish. By then, after that, I'm making dinner and shopping and doing my thing with my family.
Yeah, it's huge.
But
Balance is huge. And you taught me that early on is like balance is everything when you have kids. Now I
yeah,
have kids and my wife grew well and
yeah.
it's huge. I love that. You've been kind of a catalyst for me setting up my schedule like that. So I love that, dude.
I mean, I used to answer my phone at 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because there's nothing that's going to happen at 10 o'clock at night that's going to affect the deal one way or another unless the house exploded. But even if it exploded, whether you're the buyer or the seller, it's like, we can't do anything at 10 o'clock at night. We'll deal with it in the morning, right?
100%.
When everybody's kind of fresh and we can figure it all out.
And we're actually at our desk with our computers ready to go. 100%.
Yeah.
Any upcoming listings or projects? It sounds like you have a couple off
Oh,
markets coming
dude.
up. So what's
Oh,
going on
dude.
with you, man? What are you excited about?
Okay, I've got listings. This is nuts. I've got listings from Ferndale, which is all the way up by Eureka. I've got an 80-acre farm that is just super awesome. It's a 2,400 square foot farmhouse. It's got a gigantic barn, right? The
What?
barn was built, the place is built at the turn of the century. So imagine all that redwood was forested from Humboldt redwoods right down the street there.
No
So it's got
way.
one of those huge, 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 huge barns. The house is on 40 flat acres, and then across the street is another 80 acres, or I'm sorry, another 40 acres, and then that's all forested. But there's a water district on the property, and that services other farms. So it's really kind of cool. It's not your cookie cutter $600,000 house that flies off the shelf. This is like a lot of easements and water rights and leases for oil companies that have stuff pipelines going through there.
Yeah.
There's cattle grazing. There's this so many moving parts. It's super cool. Randy Carpenter is doing a ton of work to the house to get it all ready for sale because he
Randy's
lives up
amazing. That's
Oh yeah,
awesome.
it's great. And then I've got a listing in Moraga. I've been playing patty cake with these folks. So Barton Smith and I are bringing 85 Buckingham to the market in the next couple months. We're doing a bunch of work there. It's
Wow.
I mean that speaking of days on market, Petaluma 2 weeks or so in Moraga, it's single digit
Yep.
at all price points.
Wow.
Yep.
It's nuts. You put a house in the market on Monday, you will expect to get multiple offers by Wednesday, Thursday, and have that thing close in Mike Belfor style in 12 days. It's nuts.
We see so
Um,
much of that in the East Bay, honestly. That's kind of the East Bay's pulse. It's been that way for the last five
crazy.
years throughout all Contra Costa and Alameda counties. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
incredible.
I mean, I was diving into the numbers and showing Barton, and Barton's like, that house is on the market for 24 hours. I'm like, yeah. I said it's gone. And that's just how it is. So I've also got I've got 156 Banff. It's off market. That's here in Petaluma, East Side, 4 bed, 2 bath, 1,800 square feet, single story. House needs nothing. It's got own solar. It's
That's
got a
awesome.
brand new roof,
That's
water
awesome.
heater. Every nook and cranny of the house has been touched. It's awesome. What else do I have? I have this really cool house on the top of Lee Chow in Pengrove.
Yeah.
6960 Round Oak. The views, dude. You, the views are you can't even touch it. You cannot
Really?
touch it. Oh, it's like unobstructed views I mean, you're looking at Runner Park, right? But you can almost see, you can see the mountains way beyond there. You just can't see the water because the curve of the earth, right? But
Yeah.
nice single story house with a detached studio permitted ADU up above. 2 wells on the property that
Wow.
are in great shape. Septic's great shape. House is mainly stone, so it's not going to burn. But there will be an insurance issue up there. But again, we'll get insurance. It's just going to be more expensive. That's going to be $1.5 million. Come on the market
Wow.
next couple months. And then I've got a
Wow.
whole handful of others. So there's a lot of folks, downsizing, selling, moving. Unfortunately, people passing away, they're moving.
Mm. Yeah.
Those sort of things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's wow.
yeah.
A
So
lot
I'm
of stuff
covering
coming, man.
covering the whole area, all of Northern
I love how
California.
you have the Taylor Sheridan, California property too. They should film a
Yeah,
1883 up there or something.
that's exactly right. Yeah. Actually, I wanted to pitch it to Guy Fieri. I wanted to say, hey, this is your hometown. You could actually have an event space. You could have shows here. You could do all sorts of stuff. But the crazy thing about that, 2,300 or 2,400 square foot house, 80 acres, barn, multiple outbuildings, 20 yards, $1.2 million.
Wow.
Wow.
Your
In
nearest
California?
neighbor is 3/4 of a mile away. You could be running through your property naked and nobody unless they've got binoculars or really good vision. It's great.
That's crazy.
Straight
That's
into your own
crazy.
property. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, DJ, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you guys.
I'm
Yeah,
stoked we did
thank you,
this.
Jay.
We'll do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe next month and just kind of catch up on the stuff. But yeah, seriously, man, thank you so
Yeah.
much. And
Hopefully
again,
we'll see
I'm gonna
you.
leave contact information for DJ. So if you want what I would think is probably the best agent I know, Sonoma
Thanks,
County,
buddy.
Petaluma,
I
that
appreciate
guy.
that.
So
Yeah.
definitely, yeah, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, let's do it again.
Awesome, brother. Thank you. Have a great day, man.
I brought you too.